From the land of conjurers flying through the internet to your device like a UAP, hauntingly unexplained and downright weird, this is the witching hours, and we are ready to take off in the flash of an eye. Good evening to one and all, wherever and whenever you are listening to this program. I am Johnny the Frost, and joining me, as always, is the medium Jenny Lee. All right, Jenny, you want to get weird?
I mean, I already am, but yeah, sure. We can get extra weird.
Yeah. No, that's what we do here. So
Yeah.
hopefully all of you out there are ready to get weird. We're
You know
gonna
they are.
have a well, good conversation tonight. We're looking forward to
Yeah.
it. It's been a minute. We did like an impromptu Tuesday show to fit in some
Mhm.
scheduling, and then we were off last Thursday
And you weren't
for
on because your eye was all messed up.
yeah.
So it's been a while since you've
Yeah, oh,
even been
that's
on
right. I
here.
had forgotten about that. So it's been like 3 weeks. Wow.
I had to
No wonder
host
I
it
was
last time. We had
that's right.
Allison. Yeah.
I was just the man behind the boards.
Yeah. With your janky eyeball.
I'm all healed up and ready to go.
Yeah.
And we weren't here last week because it was your
Because it
birthday.
was my birthday.
Yeah. So we had a little,
So we're back to normal.
yeah, back off and running. We got a lot of great shows coming up. We'll get to those towards the end of the episode. We can kind of highlight what we have coming up. But are you ready to get to some news?
Of course.
All right. All right. So weird news. A lot. As we said, we kind of been saving up here. So we have some
Oh
that,
yeah.
might be a little bit older. I'm trying to catch up on my backlog of articles I've been kind of starring. But there is an update on the Boeing Starliner with the astronauts that are stuck in space.
They're
It's
just gonna be there forever. Is that what's
yeah,
happening?
well, it's looking like it. Experienced Boeing Starliner astronauts Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams are stuck in space and will not be returning home until February.
Good Lord.
The two have an extensive space history, and their families believe the decision to keep them there was ultimately the best for their safety. What was supposed to be an 8-day trip to space has turned into a months-long one. NASA officials announced over the weekend that the troubled spacecraft would return to Earth without them, essentially
Wow.
because they're afraid that
Yeah,
it
they
would
don't want
be
them to
faulty
get
on being.
hurt. Yeah.
What was supposed to be so Wilmore and Williams have been on the International Space Station since engineers discovered helium leaks and issues involving thrusters shortly after Boeing's CST-100 Starliner docked, which prompted NASA and Boeing to investigate. Uh, they are now set to return with the SpaceX Crew 9 Dragon mission, which won't even launch until towards the end of September, as that mission needs to reduce its crew from 4 to 2 to make room for the stranded astronauts who are expected to return in February. The
Mm.
Crew 9 mission will carry additional cargo as well as Dragon-specific spacesuits for Wilmore and Williams, as their Boeing spacesuits are incompatible with SpaceX spacecraft. So
Sounds like a complicated mess.
it's that would be my nightmare, and exactly probably what would happen if you sign up for if I had millions of dollars to pay
Yeah.
for a trip into space.
Mm.
University of Tennessee professor reaches #1 for Red Dead Redemption 2 history book.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, we were talking about this, weren't we?
yeah, since we're on the Twitch platform here, and everyone here knows that we used to play a lot of Red Dead Redemption 2, and
COVID year, that was all that we did.
yeah, and the history guy that I am, uh, it's a great game, and this is one of the reasons why University of Tennessee at Knoxville professor's new book tells the story of the Old West through Red Dead Redemption 2 and has become a hit among fans of the video game as well as with history buffs.
Hmm.
Author Tori Olson, an associate professor at UT and director of the school's graduate studies in history, his book, Red Dead's History of Video Game, An Obsession in America's Violent Past, is an adaptation of his popular class, American History Through Video Games. So I've talked about this one, I think, on the show before. You can
Yeah.
actually take a course, college course, graduate level
History of
course,
video games.
and you learn American history in the game. So, like, you log
Through
in and
video
you meet
games.
your professor and classmates in Red Dead Redemption.
Yep.
Made by Rockstar Games, Red Dead Redemption 2 was set in 1899 and follows Arthur Morgan, a robber
I'm
who runs
just
across
thinking
America
of
all through
I'm just
friends.
thinking of the clip
What's that?
that we watched the other day of George Carlin.
Oh.
All they're
Well, I
gonna
mean,
need
I
is
think,
a pencil.
well,
Clean pencil.
I could see that. I think sometimes it's I think it's beneficial though to try to turn some of this stuff into education. Like I think there is a
Yeah.
lot that can be learned from that game specifically. But that's coming from my point of view there.
Eh.
The audiobook reached number one in computer and video game strategy guides, and the hardcover reached number one in the U.S. Civil War history category. The past few weeks
Only in America, man.
leading up to and including the publication week have been truly unbelievable, Olsen told Knox News, getting to speak to a crowded room of 500 at the San Diego Comic-Con alongside my audiobook narrator was a dream come true. So was the signing for
I like that
many
game.
dozens. Huh?
I like it. I like that game.
Yeah.
But I don't know how.
Well, I mean, I think the difference is here though is they're not just playing the game. It's like teaching history while you're in the game and using certain scenes in the game as like a hands-on environment.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah. We're gonna fight over this, Jenny. We're gonna fight over this.
Hey.
So anyway, so last part here, the video game has spurred such fascination in so many people for grappling with American history and kind of telling kind of sometimes the dirtier parts of history that game kind of acknowledges.
I enjoyed the game for its geography.
Like for the landscapes and stuff?
Yeah, because of the landscapes are based on real landscapes and across the United States. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the whole game's kind of that way. Like, I remember running across, like, the Ku Klux Klan in the game, and you get to, like, shoot them, but a lot of that stuff is done with a pretty decent historical reference, so. Anyhow, story number 3.
Okay.
Cocaine sharks found in waters off Brazil.
Oh, for crying out loud. Cocaine bear. Now we got cocaine sharks.
2023 was a big year for sharks on coke. First came Cocaine Shark, a B movie about mutant murderous sharks. A few months later, documentary filmmakers released a more sober Cocaine Sharks, which tried to find out whether sharks in the Gulf of Mexico devour the many packages of cocaine lost or dumped by drug smugglers.
Oh.
It's a catchy headline to shed light on a real problem. Tracy Fanara, an environmental engineer in Florida, told The Guardian last year. She participated in the documentary and highlighted the issue of wildlife being exposed to drugs and other pollution. In the end, however, the evidence for coke-addled sharks was inconclusive.
Okay. Princess Baby said it sounds like a Bond villain.
Yeah.
Okay, sure.
Cocaine has...
Maybe they just need to feed the drug dealers to the sharks instead of the drugs.
Maybe so. Cocaine has been detected in sewage and rivers in many countries, including Brazil. Around Rio de Janeiro, the drug probably enters the sea directly in drainage from illegal labs where cocaine is refined. It also comes from drug users via untreated sewage. Cocaine packs lost or dumped by traffickers could also be a source.
Bringing this one back around to Red Dead, you could get cocaine gum in Red Dead Redemption.
Yeah.
So that was a thing. Yeah. History.
And the last story for tonight is it's close to home. A Yeti was chosen as the official mascot of a new Virginia middle school.
No way.
Yeah. A newly built Virginia middle school has adopted a familiar cryptozoological character as its official mascot, Yeti. Yay. According to a local media report, the monster's choice was made by students and administrators at the Watson Mountain Middle School in the community of Leesburg.
Way up there.
Yeah, all the way up north. Yeti managed to run quite the proverbial gauntlet in becoming the school's official mascot. It placed in the top 10 of a poll featuring a staggering 78 options. The character then bested the other 9 finalists when the student crafted logo was found to be an overwhelming favorite.
So it beat out Wood Booger.
Yeah, no Woodburger. They went with Yeti, but that's up north. So maybe if it would have been out in Rockfish Gap or something.
Yeah. Wood Booger
maybe they would have been the Woodburgers. You could make a pretty good mascot out of that one.
Yeah.
You know, that's a fierce football helmet. You know,
Yeah, wood booger.
we
Mhm.
got to go play the Wood Boogers tonight. Could you imagine the pep rally?
How about this? Wood boogers versus cocaine sharks. That's a game. That's a game I'm willing to watch.
Yeah, I don't know if you could get a school to have a cocaine shark mascot, but Wood Boogers maybe.
Oh, good Lord.
Anyway,
Okay.
that was the weird news.
Good stuff this week. Good stuff.
We're back with a vengeance.
Yeah.
Back with a vengeance. A new Olympic competition. All right. We got a great show for you tonight. We're excited about it. Thomas Gormley and Charles F. Rosenay are the Shaman and the Showman, two highly entertaining paranormal investigators who are also producers, actors, authors, true crime experts. Charles is the author of two books that would be of interest to many of you: True Ghost Stories of Connecticut and the Book of Top 10 Horror Lists. Tom is a paranormal veteran with a background in law enforcement and a specialization in serial murder and true crimes. Together, they produce ParaConn, Connecticut's paranormal convention, and the Salem Paranormal and Horror Convention. This year, for the first time, they promoted the CT Witch Trials Festival. Charles is also the host, founder, and organizer of Dracula Tour to Transylvania in Romania and the Ghost Tours to Europe, and is an actor who has appeared in numerous films and TV programs. They love chatting about all the projects, and we are excited to chat with them tonight. Please welcome to the show, Thomas and Charles. Welcome to the
Hey,
Witching.
Hi guys, how we doing?
Doing well. How are y'all doing this evening?
Doing great. That's quite an intro. I usually, it's one or two words. That was a lot. That doesn't leave much time for a show. Does it?
Well, unfortunately, we only got about an hour and 45 minutes left. So, well,
I just wanted to tell you guys really quick. Over the weekend, I was out in the ocean. I was swimming.
Yeah. Did you find any cocaine sharks?
I rode a cocaine shark. I don't know. Maybe that's just what it was.
Maybe so.
There you go.
Maybe so.
They gotta look off further north. They're further north than they thought they were.
I lived in Cuba for a few years, and I caught a blue shark one time, and it was absolutely terrifying. So I can't imagine hooking on to a cocaine shark. That's got to be a whole new level of terror. Yeah.
It's a whole new thing. Jaws was filmed in Martha's Vineyard up here in New England, at Cape Cod, all that area. So yeah, I guess it's possible.
Yeah.
Jaws. I mean, is there we'll get into the official, but you mentioned Jaws, and the one thing I want to say about Jaws, could you name another movie that had a more terrifying impact on the average population?
Psycho.
Yeah.
Psycho. Maybe The Exorcist.
Yeah, The Exorcist. Yeah, those are like the big three right there.
Exorcist in terms of scares. Psycho is the impact for not wanting to go in the shower and having to, bathe instead of shower. But Jaws, yeah, people would. It's still on one's mind when you go in the waters.
My dad used to, being a kid in the 80s, we had like recorded VHSs, ripped from Blockbuster or whatever video store was at the time. And I watched Jaws probably at too young of an age. But I remember being about 7 years old, and my parents had built like a little cheap above ground pool they got in the backyard, and I was right there by myself and had somehow, this complete irrational fear that this pool in my backyard had a shark in it when I closed my eyes, just because of that movie. Yeah.
It's funny because I do a lot of library appearances for my book, the book of wherever it is, top 10 horror lists, and also the ghost story book. And it usually comes up. The two movies that are picked a lot in my book, but are disputably horror movies, are King Kong and Jaws. And I strongly fight that both of them fit the bill because they both scared people in their time and both had an impact. So, anything that's scary certainly deserves it. But is it horror like Saw? Is it horror like The Conjuring or The Exorcist, probably not, but it still, fits the category.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I would argue it has to, because some of my favorite films like Halloween and stuff, I got some of that stuff behind me there, but love the movies. Yeah, they're scary, but I've never walked down the street expecting to see Michael Myers. But I have definitely gotten in the pool and worried there was a shark. So
There you go.
Legit.
Truth hour.
Yeah. I've studied human nature and all that with profiling historic serial killers, and those are your true real life Michael Myers and those types of things. And that's what you possibly run into. And I've said it before with serial killers. A lot of people don't know, in your lifetime, you'll walk by 39 serial killers and not even know it, or intertwine with them. So that makes it a horror story right there.
That is pretty
39 in a day. Come on, hello.
Yeah, I know.
Ed
me.
Ed Gein. I mean,
Yeah.
Ed Gein. I think just about any prolific fictional killer I've ever done any research on has been related to Ed Gein somehow or another.
Yeah.
So,
and it's funny because Ed Gein technically is not a serial killer. So he only actually killed 2 people. You have to kill 3 and have a rest in between. He was a grave robber more when people were freshly put into the ground. He would steal and make these skin suits. He made a skin suit of his mother because that's where the character for Psycho was after, because of his obsession with his mother. Another big one was Silence of the Lambs. The character in Silence of the Lambs, Buffalo Bill. But probably one of the biggest ones was Leatherface from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which kind of rolls into what Charles and I are doing this year with the 50th anniversary. And I'll let Charles tell you guys about that one.
What a segue. Well, I can't transition better than that. Well, so for a few years now, we've been doing the Salem ParaConn. And, we thought, let's veer a little more towards horror, because we already have established the paranormal base. We have those people are coming no matter what. We have great guests in that field, but we called it the Salem Paranormal and Horror Convention, and always were short on the horror end. And because it's the 50th anniversary of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, we got a bunch of the people from the film, including some of the actors, one of the cinematographers, and we're doing a reunion of sorts. They have these at the horror cons now, where you get casts of Evil Dead together, or casts of this. So we're doing a Texas Chainsaw Massacre 50th anniversary reunion.
Wow.
At the Salem convention. And what's really exciting is we're going to show at a local theater the original print, plus have the guests there who are going to be interviewed. So very exciting.
That is really cool.
Yeah.
Charles, you forgot Charles.
Sir?
Salem State University, October 19th and 20th.
Well,
well, the 18th is when the movie will be shown. So.
Well, can I give you more news?
Breaking news right here. Yeah.
Breaking news. I know I'm the last to find out all the time.
It's definitely the 18th, 19th, and 20th. Well, Frosty and Jenny, the really exciting thing is that we've done this show for a few years now, and it's always in November. And we thought, well, we had to do it in November because Salem is too busy in October.
Yeah.
That has got to be the worst marketing excuse on the planet, because we should be doing it in October when there's 50,000 more people in the city, with maybe in a few hours or some days that they can. Well, look, anyway, so we moved it to October, and then we've got
the season.
Yep.
This the season. That's the best season, and we've had it at Salem State University, where it's great because it's a lot of free parking and we have a lot of space. We use an old gym, but it's also not walking distance from the center, from Essex Street, from all the main hubbub of Salem. So while I was away in England for the past 10 days, and my partner in here and I haven't really spoke about it, some things actually came down. And one of the things that came down is on Friday and Sunday, the event will be at Salem's waterfront. which is literally seconds away from all the action of Salem. So 2 of the days are definitely not going to be at the university after all this planning at the university. So anyway, look at the website, Shadows of Salem. It will be updated literally within the next few days with the correct location, with all the new attractions. But know that it's definitely October 18th, 19th, and 20th in Salem, Massachusetts.
That's so exciting. I was going to say, I can't believe that movie's 50 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess because there have been 500 remakes and reboots and sequels. So when that happens, you lose sight of the the fact that it's same with Halloween, but one is a respected classic and the other one is like a gore favorite. Both of them are I love them both.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's always interesting to me. I actually got stationed down in Texas when I was in the Army, and I was like, when we got down there, it's like, oh, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. But known as based off Ed Gein as like, Wisconsin, which Ginny has family. That's kind of where her family's from. Yeah. And so I tell my students all the time, if there's anywhere you should be afraid of, it's Wisconsin, because not only is Ed Gein from Wisconsin,
especially
Jeffrey Dahmer was from Wisconsin, and then also Wayne Gacy was from Wisconsin. So I don't know what's in the water in Wisconsin.
Is it the cold? I don't know.
Serial killers and mediums, I guess. Well, one or the other.
Any Wisconsin viewers or listeners that can chime in?
Yeah.
I don't know. That's where my mom's from. I need to ask her.
Do you guys know who Robert Ressler is?
It sounds familiar. I don't know.
Robert Ressler was one of the FBI agents that started the behavioral science unit. Okay. His character, him personally, they made a character about him in the TV show Mindhunters.
Yes, I watched.
He came up with the phrase serial killer. Mm-hmm. A lot of people don't know. You talk about John Wayne Gacy, but John Wayne Gacy grew up in Chicago, and the only person he would let interview him after his arrest was Robert Ressler. Reason being, when Robert Ressler and Gacy were little, they were in the same Boy Scout troop growing up in Chicago. So that's pretty bizarre, isn't it?
That is really
one hunts him and one becomes one. In youth. So that's so bizarre. There's your weird history right there. So
yeah,
I'm always here to help.
What a weird twist of events there.
Yeah.
And I know that show was based on a book. I did watch the show. It was great. And then they kind of shelved it. But yeah, if you haven't watched that, it's definitely worth to get a good, a little bit of a history lesson on how the science was developed to identify serial killers. Mm-hmm. It was it's a good watch.
Yeah, it is very good. So, the book is fantastic. There's a new version that came out, and it's been 20 years since it was written, and they go over some of the stuff that's come about scientifically and some advances in the behavioral science unit since then. And so it's a newer version of it. I just bought it the other day just to read the pages that I didn't read. That 20 years ago. So it's great.
Yeah, excellent. All right, so we kind of got off. We got some horror movie stuff knocked out, which we haven't been able to talk about a lot on this show. And me and Ginny both are pretty big horror fanatics, but we don't for some reason we don't get to breach that on this particular show very much, because we're talking about the stories that inspire those things. So I guess we can get started here with kind of going over how both of you kind of came into this field and how you started doing what you guys are doing now.
You can go first, buddy.
I'm going to go first. Oh, okay. So I've been an empath my whole life. I didn't know what it was until I was about 13. And I had a chance meeting with Ed and Lorraine Warren. So, the Conjuring movies, all that, Amityville, all the cases they did, The Haunting in Connecticut, which happened in Southington, where I grew up. I actually met them that same year that they were doing that case.
Wow.
And I was at the show, and then Lorraine come up to me after, and she just skipped everybody, came right up to me and just recognized my aura and all that. And she pretty much told me, hey, you feel energies, and kind of made me feel at ease. And over the next few years before I went off to college, I would spend a little bit of time. I never investigated with them. I just would go over the house, especially on Halloween. They would have a special night when they do their lectures. They wouldn't show all the good stuff, like the sounds from the exorcisms that they were part of and those types of things, you know, and you got to learn a lot about all the cases and everything behind it. And it was just great. And then I went off to college, kind of forgot about it. I was kind of in and out of the paranormal. And then my mom passed away in 2012. And I felt the insatiable need to come out of my shell and just help people, help the living, help the dead. And I always had the knocking on my head. Hey, wake up, buddy. Hey, wake up, buddy. And it finally realized, and I had some mentors help me and realize that I was chosen to be a healer, be a shaman, if that's the way you want to look at it. And it's kind of funny that Charles and I met, in the name of his company was the Shaman and the Showman, and taking over as an actual shaman was pretty cool. So, but how we met was kind of funny. So, you know, Charles and I met at one time, and, you know, in this industry, you get to, you know, see people here and there. But when we first met, it was kind of like very quick. And I don't, you know, really remember, you know, our meeting and all that. And I was asked to, from his old partner, to come to a psychic fair they were doing at the Two Roads Brewery in Connecticut, which is a really good beer that gets distributed all over the place. But we're in there and kind of making my way around, talking to a lot of people. I always like to go to all the psychics and see what I'm feeling off them, just to make sure they're legit, you know, because I'm an open-minded skeptic. And, you know, I like to see who's real, who's not. But you know, Charles and I are kind of talking back and forth, and then Charles looks at me and he says, "I don't like you." So of course I say back to him, "I don't like you either." And we kind of laughed at each other. And I don't think it was maybe a couple days later that his partner decided to go do his own thing, and Charles really needed somebody to help out. And I said, "Yeah, I'll be there for you, buddy." And, you know, a few shows he was doing with some other people and all that. But after a time, it was like we really got close and started doing this together, and just putting a different perspective on it. And I know Charles will tell you, because when he's done these events before where you have to go into the house and investigate, it's like, he's like, "No way am I going in there." His old partner, that he was like, "I'm not going in there, it's too scary." But over time, as Charles got to know me and the way I was and my different approach, and just the healing of the living and the dead, and just say, hey, there's nothing to worry about, Charles finally does the events and stays, instead of running away like a little scared
anyway
boy. I have to embarrass him, you know. That's just what we do with each other. So
yeah.
But it's been a great partnership. You know, we really trust each other. We're like brothers, and I think the creative side of it, the advertising, and just being relentless because we love it. It's a passion. And
so you guys kind of like each other now?
Yeah, sort of. I still don't like him, but I'm kind of fond of him a little bit, but just a little fond of him. So
yeah,
it's that brotherly love.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm very late to the game. I've only been involved with the paranormal field about 10 years, if that. I was always a monster kid. I grew up, you know, making the monster models, watching every possible film, reading famous monsters of filmland. And to me, the whole, you know, ghosts and paranormal and the supernatural was just another tangential field, as is UFOs, as is science fiction, as is whatever. But the aforementioned previous partner really got me much more into it by, you know, taking me on paranormal investigations, and also trying to get me to produce events. I've always produced conventions. I've been producing conventions for over 40 years. And I'm a promoter, I'm a producer, I'm an entertainment guy. And so the Showman fits me as much as the Shaman fits Thomas. And then we started doing the paranormal conventions in Connecticut. When we started, there were none. And it was just second nature to me to produce an event. So when there was the opportunity to put on a paranormal convention, I didn't hesitate. I used all my history of producing skills to combine with the people I was working with who had more of a knowledge of which guests to invite, who was the legitimate people in this field. And so going out on these investigations and now straight through together with Tom, I would take pictures. I was this guy who didn't believe anything. And then I would take pictures and all of a sudden it's like, what, how did that appear on my camera? I couldn't believe the results I was getting, having played the skeptic and played the non-believer to the shaman. And that's how we would do events. A typical event is going to a restaurant, feeding the people, making sure I do shtick, make them laugh, tell them why I don't believe any of this, and poke fun at them literally. And then Tom brings them out the equipment and turns them around and gets serious. And then we actually go to the places and get unbelievable results. And that, like he said, I would end that at that point. I would leave. That would be the end of my tenure with the evening. But now I go into the places because it's a different approach. He goes in with a different intent. It's not to rile up spirits. It's not to antagonize. Not saying that anyone I was with before did that, but I know there's people who do that. They want results so badly that they'll, light a fire under it. It's totally different, when you go with someone who's been doing it as long as Mr. Gormley has and has as much knowledge in the field and is delicate and sensitive and knows that kind of approach.
It's really interesting. Well, it's the fact that you brought that up, because I feel like that was becoming more popular a while back. There was lots of antagonizing going on whenever it came to ghost investigations, especially kind of once I feel like that started hitting like the mainstream TV a lot. You started seeing more of that. And so I saw local groups doing more of that. But I do feel like everyone's kind of realizing that's a no-no now, or at least that's starting to kind of spread through a lot of events that I've gone to. That's been like a big thing. And guess what we've had on the show? Okay, like people have to start doing this the right way. And so it seems like, it seems like you guys are kind of on board with that too. Would you guys agree with that? That hopefully that's people are becoming more aware of that?
We hope they are. We certainly have been now from day one that we've been doing things, and I've learned just so much. Just being alongside my partner here, in that there's so many ways you can do this. There's so many approaches, and there's so many levels of mediumship. And someone might be just discovering their own powers and gifts, and you want to help cultivate that. You want to always do the right thing in life, in this field, in everything you do. And so there's probably variances of how people see what that right thing is. But I'd like to think that, no one's poking the bear unnecessarily and doing things that are only, not positive in any which way. Let's hope that everyone's, like you're saying, getting more and more attuned to doing the right thing.
And I also feel like, with, Thomas being, intuitive, and obviously, medium Jenny Lee investigations you've done, having someone who's intuitive in the investigations. I feel like in general, there's been a lot more movement to having intuitives, at least as part of the team, even if they're kept separate. And I wonder too, if like having, instead of just being like, oh, that door slammed and somebody got scratched, it's a demonic infestation and antagonizing, that having someone who has an understanding maybe of what's going on the other side has brought a little bit more humanity to the investigation. Would you agree with that, Thomas?
Yeah. A lot of people don't understand the scratching. I got pushed, other stuff. You got to realize somebody like me who's intuitive, I'm a beacon of light. People are trying to get your attention. They want to tell their story. They're desperate. You think about it. If you were swimming and you were starting to drown and the lifeguard comes out to save you, and you're so desperate, you wrap your arms around, you almost drowned each other. It's that desperate need to tell your story to get that, words to make that decision to move on, because you don't know what to do. You're stuck. You're desperate. You want to talk to somebody. So you accidentally scratch them. You accidentally push them. those are the things that could possibly happen. Do I know 100%? No. And I've been known, one of my favorite quotes is, paranormal, you're never 100% right, you're never 100% wrong about the paranormal. And just with our events that we do, forget what you see on TV and all that. But there is a time when you talk to spirit, and when you in tune, like myself, when I in tune to spirit, sometimes there's some hard conversations sometimes with spirit, because that's what they need. You know, they need that a little extra, hey, you know, the in your face type of thing. Almost the battle that I had with Andrew Borden at the Lizzie Borden house, trying to get him to admit what he did to his kids and what was behind that. But, you know, Charles and I do these events a lot. Every event we've done, there's always been some kind of activity. And that's why we encourage people to come on these events. They're safe events. We have a dinner. Charles has fun with the guests, and then, you know, I tell them about the equipment. I give a little background and all that. We do a little history about the location we're going to go to, and then we go into it, and we're always there. You know, people go, you go and investigate. We're always there to answer questions. You know, Charles is taking his pictures because he always gets some really cool stuff, especially the picture he got on the cover of his book. And he'll show you that in a little while, because I know he likes to talk about his book. Yeah. And, but I think recently we did our last event was at the Trolley Museum in East Haven. And you never know what you're going to get at these events, because usually when there's a lot of people, you know, it's like anything. If you're a spirit and 15 people walk in the room and start asking you questions, you're probably not going to be as open. You know, the human spirit's still there. It's just the shell's gone. And so I never know what we're going to get. We get things here and there, shadow figures, things like that. It's always great because people get to have that experience. But the last event we did, I think the people got their money's worth and the experience of a lifetime. I'm known to communicate with the living and help them heal, and the dead and help them heal. And it doesn't happen often when there's a lot of people around. It's usually an individual thing, or I'm with another person. And so we were at the Trolley Museum, and there's one of the trolleys that was in this like museum like area right on the rails, was from New Orleans. And we're there. We usually do a 2-day event. And I reached out, and I was getting this gentleman named Billy, and he wanted to go to college. And was trying to figure out why he wanted to go to college and all that. And we let people hold the equipment and get to experience that. So that first night is what I got. The second night, I think Billy got a little more comfortable, and people were holding the equipment. And there's a thing called the EMF meter and all that. It picks up milligauss. It's your electromagnetic frequency. I think a lot of your viewers might know what it is. You guys might know what it is. But we had one of the girls holding it, and the guy that was giving the tour, and all of a sudden this real high energy came in. And usually like 0.1, 0.2 is pretty cool. It's like we know something's around. This thing was like 60, 70 milligauss, which is like unprecedented, you know. That's high energy. And the tour guy actually started falling back from the overwhelming energy. So I saw that things were getting a little out of hand. I had everybody just kind of sit down, and I just had this one-on-one I picked up Billy. And as I settled and I tuned in with Billy, all I could visualize is World War II going over and over into my head. And then I realized, okay, Billy wanted to go to college, but he went off to war and he probably passed away.
Yeah.
And I said to Billy, I says, Billy, I says, because you served our country, and, you know, when you died for our country, that's college. So you did, you know, do what you needed to do. As soon as I said that, it went from 60 down to 0. And you could feel the rush of energy come right up that trolley car and just out. And it was pretty amazing. And people were so quiet for at least 10 minutes trying to wrap their head around what just happened.
Yeah.
And I was pretty happy about it because it helped Billy. But Charles and I always want people to have an experience at our event. And I think you never know what you're going to get when you come to our event. That's why it's important to make sure that when we do an event that you're there. I mean, the people's energy, when they bring it in, when we're all together, the more people, the more energy, the more things that might happen. So just we want to make sure everybody comes. We got one coming up in Bristol, Connecticut, at one of the old witches' houses. That's it was featured on one of the ghost shows. I won't talk about which one. But there's 3 houses that are right near each other, and it's some pretty amazing things. It's like an art gallery now, and the gentleman that lives in one of the houses feels like the art has some spirits attached to it. So this is going to be an amazing event. We don't want anybody to miss it. And it's actually going to be on Friday the 13th in September and 14th.
Oh, nice.
So it's that has that theme and all that. And
double whammy.
It's going to be amazing. It's, like I said, if it's anything like our last event, it seems to be getting more and more energy seems to be building at our events that we do. So
what's unique about the one coming up is when the ghost program went there, I think it's all 3 houses are historic 1600, whenever they were built. And they went to the one that was reputed to be haunted. And they went there and got 0 results. I mean, they were going to can the show. They would say, we came out here for nothing, blah, blah, blah. And then they're walking away. And at the next home, all of a sudden, the meters start going off the charts, bazooties as far as results. So it was the one that's next to the one thought to be. And then as it turned out, that was called the Old Witch's House because years later, I mean, in modern times, an old lady lived there and everyone was afraid to go near that. That was that neighborhood house. You always say that witch lives there. So it wasn't a witch from the days of the witch trials and all that. It was literally a witch in the past, century who people were afraid to go to that house. So there's always reasons why that's always the case. When something is rumored to be such and such, it's expected to be, and it's passed down through the generations. Usually there's that reason for it. And in this case, that's the one we're going to spend the most time in. And the owner of the house, he's an artist, and he is adamant about the fact that his works get possessed when he doesn't turn and sell them instantly, or if they're in for whatever reason. When we finally decided, or we finally got permission that we were going to visit this home, his wife texted me and goes, maybe we shouldn't do this. And I said, why? She goes, things have been thrown around. There's noise. It's really in an uproar over this. And I wrote, awesome. I wrote back to her. She said, not awesome. You don't have to live here.
Exactly. You don't have to live with it.
But that's the thing. When we do these events, that's what happens. The spirits know we're coming.
Yeah.
And I don't have a good relationship with spirits sometimes because they don't like when I come, because I have this ability to get them to move on.
Oh, yeah.
And some of these places don't want Charles and I to come because they feel like it's their moneymaker. They don't want us to move the ghost or spirits or anything like that on, but
yeah, I had an experience like that too.
Yeah,
Well, not this.
Well, that was a conversation that we've had before. We haven't had it recently, but something that me and Jenny have talked about at one point in time was the ethics of moving on spirit. How do you both feel about that? Like, if we don't, I guess some people maybe have a better understanding of the other side than others, but do we really know enough to kind of make those decisions?
It's a great question. Let me start by saying, I think that if something doesn't want to move, it won't move no matter what. First, and secondly, what he talked about, Billy, the scenario on that trolley, that was a spirit that might have been trapped there. And if I hope that it was exactly as described, that he finally came to the realization that he was able to move on because he did, in fact. He wasn't tormented anymore about not going to college because the being in the war was his college. I mean, what greater? I mean, that's an amazing, great deed in the big picture for for an unsettled spirit. So now the question is, if we're doing it without their permission, is that what's not cool? And the question is probably yes. But it might not know that it needs to move over. It might not know that it has to move over. It might not know that it could move over. So
yeah, because it sounds like Thomas wasn't forcing Billy to go anywhere. He
No.
was just
It's just the
consoling
result
him
of
and telling
yeah.
him that it was okay, and that was enough.
It is the wrong thing to move something by force. All
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I converse with the
Mhm.
dead. I do have that conversation. I give them the words. I want to hear their story. When I hear their story, sometimes it comes to the point where it's like, I don't think they want to be here anymore. But there are spirits that want to stay. There was a woman's spirit one time that enjoyed being here because she still likes to see the Blue Jays. And, there's things like that, but when you converse with them and find out if they want to stay or not, or if they don't know they're dead. And then you let them know, so say, hey, you passed away. There's been times I've, recently over the weekend or the past week, I was in Enfield doing a docu-series, and one of the spirits, I actually showed them their death certificate.
Oh, wow.
And they didn't realize that, they weren't around anymore. And you could feel them make that decision to move on. And that was quite a weekend. And I'm still reeling from it. And hopefully you guys will see that docuseries when it comes out. I don't want to talk too much about it. I don't want to put any more power to some of the negative things that we ran into, but there was a lot of positive out of it too. So, which is fantastic.
Aren't we doing an event at that same location at the end of the year?
Yeah, we're actually, it's great because what we've done at that house and created and all that, we're doing a haunted Christmas party.
Oh.
In December, which another Friday the 13th. Got a couple of Friday the 13th this year.
We
so
do.
December, Friday the 13th, and December, Saturday the 14th, we're doing an event there with the family. The family has had several things go on. They've been on several TV shows. So there's been a lot of stuff that's gone on there. They are the nicest family you'll ever meet. And I mean, they have boxes and boxes of history of the home. You never go to a location like that. You usually have to do a lot of research. They have everything. I mean, It just makes it so easy. The place has a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of paranormal activity there, and it ranges from protective spirits to spirits that move in and out just for the energy. There's historical spirits. There's also there's trauma spirits, which we like to call, it sounds bad, but we call them familiar demons, which is basically our own traumas and what we manifest. And those are the hardest ones to deal with. And that was probably one of the hardest points of the weekend. It's something we're still working on. But come see the family. They decorate really good at Christmas time. And, Charles and I always got stuff up our sleeve. So there's a lot of planning that goes into it. Plus, it's Christmas. A lot of people don't realize is old tradition. The oldest tradition in the book, even back in pagan times, Celtic times, and English, had the tradition to have the whole family at Christmas time sit around the camp, the fire or the fireplace, and tell ghost stories at Christmas time. That's one of the oldest traditions in the book, and that's what we plan on doing. With our party at the Enfield, 1771 Enfield house. We're trying to get away from the demonic Enfield demon house, they called it. We're trying to help them rebrand and have that and help them build their business. And I've actually, before Charles is live with me on the air right now, but the family has a daughter that they're trying to help her start running the business. And I want her to learn, and she's a great kid. And I plan on helping her develop and take her everywhere that I am, and she'll be with me. And hopefully Charles will be all right with that. And that way she could learn how Charles and I do stuff. So that'll help them rebrand and have their things going with the house. So it's done properly. And so people that come in, they have boundaries with the people come in, so they're not doing anything that's going to cause any more problems that they've already had at the house.
Exactly.
Excellent. Yep. Well, you took the words right out of my mouth, because I was getting ready to talk about the tradition of telling ghost stories for Christmas. It's Christmas. You hit the nail on the head for me, because Christmas is one of my favorite things. I actually wrote my master's thesis about Christmas.
Yeah.
You know, if anybody doubts that, all you have to do is go look at Charles Dickens' book he wrote.
Yep.
You know, A Christmas Carol, and there you go. There's evidence right there of ghost stories, Christmas time. So, yeah, that sounds like a great thing to do. Is to go join in some festive ghost storytelling for the holiday season.
And
there's a nice warm beverage of you know whatever, and
little eggnog, a little ghost stories, a little other things. You know, there's some thoughts I had maybe doing a like everybody bring a haunted gift and have a little gift exchange, and there's all kinds of ideas that are coming out. The woman that the lady of the house is actually very artsy. She makes stuffed gnomes from scratch. She's actually from Germany, and there's a big history with gnomes from Germany.
Oh wow, yeah.
She does cool stuff, and I mean, trying to get her to develop that a little bit more, and the haunted dolls that they do, and it's great. And even the man of the house, he's very handsy too, and he's able to carve things out of wood and all that. So they got a lot going on, and just this whole like week of helping them realize that hey, it's not just all about the house. He's got other things going on that helps and gets people to realize that it isn't all about the house sometimes, you know. And we talked about it is a house, but you got to find the things that make it a home too, with your family and all that. So it's been quite a week, and I'm really excited because they're going to be up with us as vendors in Salem, so you'll get to visit them, and they'll tell you all their stories, and that way you'll get to see them. And then Charles and I will be doing the event in December. So it's that relationship and that friendship that we have with them currently right now. And I think people will gravitate towards that. And hopefully all that are in the area, or even if you got to fly in, who cares? Spend the weekend with us. We're giving you plenty of time to make a trip out to Connecticut. The airport, the Bradley Airport from the Enfield house is only 15 minutes away. So
nice.
Fly in, have some fun. So maybe they'll let you stay in the side that the family doesn't stay, because I lived in that house for almost a week, and I've had quite a bit of experience. So, and you know, some other people were in there. We called it our sleepaway camp. We called it Sleepaway Camp at Lake Titicaca. So, you know, so we were laughing and having fun, but that's what it's about. You know, it can't be all seriousness. You know, sometimes when you laugh like that, it brings out the best of the spirits too. So that's what you want to try and do at a house that has that negative connotation and all that. And that's what we did. We all ate together. We had cookouts. We got to know each other. And remember, it wasn't all about the spooky stuff. It was just, why is this house this? And what's the reaction? And why is this? And it's unprecedented. I don't think any 4 shamans have been in the same place to do the same thing at the same time. Psychic mediums, there was medical doctors there, psychologists, you know, people doing EMDR, you know, you name it. We hit every angle, and to make sure that we were able to help them out. You know, in the meantime, while we were doing that, Charles, I think, was over in Liverpool having a fun Beatles tour. But, you know,
I was getting ready to say, is he hanging out with the Beatles over there?
Yeah, he was hanging out with the Beatles. I was fighting spirits, and Charles was getting in touch with some of the Beatles spirits and some of the ones that are still alive over there. So, but music's always great.
Different spirits.
Yeah, spirits in spirits. That's one of my tours that I do. You know, I talk about my cases and try and go to these like do these beer tastings and all that, and then I'll talk about spooky stuff. So kind of working on that as spirits and spirits kind of talk.
That's fun too. Yeah. We had a question earlier about the witch house you guys were talking about. Does the guy feel that the art was painted by spirit, or that they attached after the art was finished?
So it's not painted art. He's a 3D type of guy. So you're getting ceramics, you're getting moldings. So a lot of those are creviced items. And those things go inside them as opposed to a flat surface. I don't want to ask now. I want to really wait and learn when we bring the group in, because I think what I'll be asking will be repeated, and then there'll be backup questions and all that. The fact that he's letting us go in to his own home, where it's also an art studio, and the fact that he's going to be there, I think that's part of the allure of the event. So the person is asking exactly the first question we're all going to ask.
So he makes the artwork there at the house.
He does.
Yeah.
We're going to ask which items and how they manifested itself to being for him to feel they're possessed or inspired. And I mean, I'm going to tell you some of the questions I'm going to ask. If something is that possessed, is he comfortable then selling it and bringing it to home?
Oh yeah.
And has there been any negative? So that leads to a whole lot of questions that I don't want to ask him yet. I really want to wait until the day comes.
Well, go ahead. There is a big history about haunted art. Even with what we're talking about here, you really look at it. Probably some of the most haunted art that was ever done was the crying baby, or the crying boy. In a lot of those paintings, when people took them into their homes burned down, and the painting would not burn. And that's happened on several different occasions with several of the artists' work. So this is something that we're looking at here, going into the old witch's house and this art museum and having that connotation and the history of that. That's why Charles and I are going to be asking all these questions. It's like, exactly. Why do you feel that way? And, so that's amazing.
A lot of places we've gone to and done, others have also, they're known because they're, haunted. And this is really special because it's a place that, aside from that TV show, the family really didn't want to open itself to that. We're friends, so that he said we can do it. And we're really looking forward to it. Yes, it's Connecticut, so that someone from, Encino, California, they want to hear what happens after the fact, and we always report on what happens. And people also then say, well, how do we know about all your events? We want to go to the Old Witch's House in Bristol, Connecticut in September. We want to go to the holiday party. We want to go. Each event will usually have a Facebook event. And we just put out our emails and our phone and say, just call us for information, because there isn't that one website that's a laundry list of this is happening next week. And then my ghost tours have its own website. The Drac tours have their own website. The Salem Paranormal Convention has its own website. And it kind of makes it a little difficult for the people who want that overview of everything that's going on. But that's why we put out the CT ParaConn at gmail.com. And it's CT for Connecticut, CT ParaConn with 2 N's. And that's short for Connecticut. And it's also the double meaning because it's a con. So CTParaConn at gmail.com is really the best way. If any of your viewers or listeners, want to come to Connecticut or live in Connecticut or are going to be in Connecticut, whether it's September or December or any of the other times through the year, about the only event that we do that's outside of Connecticut and sticking with New England is the Salem, Massachusetts Paranormal and Horror Convention.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. And that's great to give that out. And just for everybody who's hanging out on Twitch or with YouTube, hanging out with us tonight, we do have the links for ParaConn, the Shadows of Salem, Paranormal Connecticut, all listed there in the description up above, thumbnailed up at the top. And if you are listening to this in another time, in another place, all of those links will be listed down below in the description. So make sure you click and go find out what's going on. And just to kind of reset real quick, we've already reached the top of the first hour. It's 9 o'clock. So if you've joined us since we got started with the show, we are hanging out tonight with Thomas Gormley, and we are hanging out with Charles F. Rosenay, the Shaman and the Showman. And we've been talking about a lot of stuff tonight already. We have a lot more to get to. We've been over some horror flicks and some of the movies we like, and all kinds of paranormal investigation and cocaine sharks. So we're getting it going.
Yeah.
I guess one other thing I want to talk about before we get away with it, because before we get too far away or into something else, you mentioned earlier, Charles, about that Connecticut didn't really have a ParaConn And I spent a little bit of time in Rhode Island, so I was there for like 3 years, and I know, even though I'm a Virginia kid and I'm a Southern guy at heart, I know that New England does Halloween better than anywhere else in the United States that I've been to, and just kind of like the infatuation with the paranormal, I feel like has a little bit stronger, just a little bit stronger of a resonation up there. It's really surprises me that there wasn't something going on in Connecticut. So how did you guys get that started, and what was going on with that specifically?
Well, first of all, I'm impressed. You did Texas, Cuba, and Rhode Island. This is like, wow.
All over the place.
Military brat, and then I joined the military. So I've been all over.
Before I answer the question, I want to tell you that we did a ghost tour to Cuba.
Wow! Yeah.
And brought about 50 people, and people said, "Well, what's haunted in Cuba?" And I just went down a list of all these places where people were, decimated and all the thing. And we did Santeria visits. It was really a great trip. But anyway, I digress. Connecticut, which I attest, and every person I've ever worked with will usually agree that the most haunted places are the places where there was perhaps the most bloodshed, wars, brutality. In the case of New England, Connecticut, there was also so much land just ripped away from Native Americans, and it's also an area that's very heavily watered. There's a lot of running water. You combine running water with all the tragedies, with all that, and you're going to have unsettled lands and haunted areas and cursed territories. And so I'll always say that Connecticut is one of the most haunted states. And I know I'll get arguments from every other state, and they're right to. It is. Every state has its hauntings.
We're seeing that Michigan seems to be a very strong contender right now. We're getting a lot.
I've heard that Connecticut is, Connecticut's right up at the top.
There's a lot. Yeah.
It surprised me, being new to the field, that there wasn't one. And the same time we did one came out like 6 months later. The Warrens people did the Seekers of the Paranormal Convention, and I plug them because we're friends. We did one part of the year, they do it another. This year they're moving it to Gettysburg.
Yes.
So
which
we're
isn't
back.
too far from us. That's
our neck of the woods. You better go and attend it. So it's
like
they always put on a good show.
It's like a national show. We're more of a regional, local event. Salem is also more of a national event. But the Seekers the Warrens do a phenomenal job, and highly recommend it. But moving out of Connecticut, so now I don't know if they're going to stay out, but we're now the only Connecticut Paranormal Convention, and we're fine with that. Why wasn't there any before that? There's there's always been investigators. There's always been haunted locations. There hasn't really been ParaConns that many years, if you think about it. You think about horror conventions and Beatle conventions and comic book conventions, much, much longer history than the ParaConns. And the ParaConns seem to be springing up a lot more, to the point that literally every city or every town will eventually have either a small version of it, or if it's a smaller state, it'll have that statewide version of it. But I just think it's time had come, and it's more and more places are having them, and they're great. I'm a big fan. I'm a convention geek anyway. I love going to attend them. I love producing them. I love vendoring at them. Vendoring, is that a word? Vending at them, because you're with like-minded people. It makes sense. You're with kindred spirits who share that same either love of picking up that piece of haunted equipment, or having their their future read or their past read, whatever. All that stuff is in one place. It's just the greatest smorgasbord of supernatural stuff at a convention.
It's really interesting because we talked about Connecticut and us being here in Virginia, which also a lot of old American history here. Yes. And we really don't have
we don't have jack squat.
We have some very we have some good local, like specific to like a certain area, like a certain building ones. But we haven't either. And that is
have a big one.
That's very much that the ParaConns are picking up steam. It's something that we're trying to get out to more, especially doing the witching hours, because we're meeting so many people like you, and it's like, hey, it'd be really cool to have an adult beverage or a Diet Coke or whatever with some of these people that we've been meeting on the show. So yeah, that is really interesting. Since we're on the topic of Connecticut, we did have a very close friend of ours who was on the show back in the very early days, named Joe Cunningham, who's from that region. And he was talking about, he told us a story of an archaeological dig that happened there with where they found vampires. Were you guys familiar with that story? I was just curious.
Yeah, what actually happened was there were some people doing a dig. They were moving some land around and all that, and they found this weird casket, and they called the Connecticut historian, and he came out, and there was initials on the casket, and just the way it was interesting. And he did some background checking and all that. And back in the day, during what they call, we call it TB. Back then, they called it the consumption. And just with them coughing and blood coming up and all that, and even after they passed, there was still that frothiness and all that. So they were thinking, geez, our relatives are coming up out of the grave and they're taking the next people, because everybody kept dying. So they thought these people were raising from the dead. So to keep that from happening, they would re-dig up the bodies, and they would cut the heads off, and they would make the bones into a cross and all that. And that's how they were finding these bodies, with the bones, with no heads and cross and all that. And after doing the research, there was the vampire panic, in that Griswold, Connecticut area and all that. So it was part of our history, and I talked about it a lot because I am a glorious weirdo, down the rabbit hole, historic guy. There's not a lot of the paranormal history in Connecticut that I don't know about, or just any of the history in general.
Our friend Joe was lucky enough to be one of the people that worked on that dig. So it was a really cool story. I wanted to go back to Charles and ask you. So you were a skeptic. You probably still are a little bit. What was one of the experiences that made you start to believe some?
Before I answer that, I like to preface stuff. Before I do that, I can't wait to produce the Witching Out. I want to do a convention with the four of us as hosts.
That sounds good.
Bring it to Virginia.
I'll tell you, Charles, because I can't let that slide. That is one of the goals that I have for the show. I would love to do something like that. I talk about it all the time, and everyone's like, hey, Frosty, shut up. You talk about this every week, and you don't even go to any ParaConns, so you got to go to them first. So, yeah.
Let's really talk about that. And the other thing is, we have to call this episode 72, Cocaine Shark.
The shaman, the showman, and the cocaine shark.
Went to a bar.
We could call it the cocaine shark ParaConn in Virginia. So.
I'm sure that'll go over really well down here in the South.
Oh my Lord.
I think part of my shtick was acting the skeptic. Acting the non-believer, and it was. I act. I do a lot of. I've been in a lot of movies and a lot of films, so part of my thing. It's shtick, and so it's easier for me to be alongside the shaman and say, "Oh, come on," roll my eyes, and then, "Oh my God," when something happens, I could be even more blown away by it. But as we've gone on investigations and kind of mostly when I wrote my book, it just slapped me in the face so much that I can't do that anymore. My own photos give validation to everything. And when I wrote my book, True Ghost Stories of Connecticut, the editor said, you've included some current things, but don't you have that amazing story you can tell along with the other people who contributed to the book? And guys, it just when that light bulb went off, I remembered in college, I had an incredible experience that I did not remember for decades. And I didn't know if it was repressed memory or how could I have not remembered that this was such a amazing, I saw a ghost, guys. And it was undisputable. And the person who took me to see that ghost knew the whole story about it, drove me to it, told me the story going there. He had seen it. And the exact same thing happened to me, to the point that I brought my parents the next night, and they had that same experience. When I was ready to put the book out and I wrote my chapter, I looked up this friend who I hadn't talked to since college, 30 whatever years. And I said, "Hey, Ed, will you be a Facebook friend?" Yes, of course. And then I, did the little niceties and all that. And I said, "Hey, I need you to read something and tell me if I'm making this up. Did I dream this?" And I sent him the chapter, and he did a OMG back to me. He goes, "Oh my God, I haven't thought about that since we did it."
Wow.
I'm like, how is that we both had that same experience, that we both saw a ghost or a spirit and both forgot about it till now? And he read it and he said, "Yeah." I go, "I didn't embellish it. I didn't make anything up." He goes, "Verbatim, that's exactly what happened." And I put that in the book. And something even more recent happened in the place that I live now. But I wasn't able to put I wasn't able to put it in my book because my wife wouldn't let me. She said it might, or raise things in the house. And she didn't want people like my buddy up here who do this all the time to come over the house in the middle of the night with their heaters.
I don't do that. I don't.
No, of course not. I said people like you, but who are?
I'm like a vampire. I won't come unless you invite me in.
So she didn't want to open up our address in our house to something that people might then come investigating at all hours and knock on the doors. So I left what would probably have been the best chapter out, but it's an excuse to plug it now.
Yes, please.
30 or 33 or so people who we respect in the paranormal world gave their I put it right here, firsthand paranormal accounts by individuals who experienced the occurrences. Every town has that. Ghosts of Lynchburg, ghosts of Ottawa, ghosts of New Haven, Connecticut. And what does it do? It tells you the history of why it was, supposedly a haunted location.
Yeah.
I wanted to do one step further. I wanted direct wow moments of people who had experiences at these places, some of which are the most famous haunted places in Connecticut, some no one ever heard of. And that doesn't matter. What mattered is two criteria. One, that it had something to do with Connecticut, and two, that it was true. I didn't want anyone, coloring it up. I didn't want them making it, "Ooh, this is going to be scary if I write this." I want to know exactly what happened. And the book is so well received. I wish that there were colleagues of mine in every city who would put together a similar book, because I'd want to read, I want to read what happened to Jenny when she walked into such and such a place. And, that one experience that stays out in your mind when I say, "Hey, give me that one." And that's what the book is. And, Thomas was kind enough to say about my, taking photos and what I put in the book. This is cover, aside from these skeleton heads, these skulls, which come from an ossuary in Prague that I photoshopped into the picture. The background is actually an opera house in Connecticut, and it had been unvisited for many years. It was closed and shuttered and all that. And we got to go in and we got to bring the local TV news, and it was a big deal. And I took a bunch of pictures of a doorway, because it was just the doorway that light was shining through. We weren't allowed up in the balcony. This was the mezzanine of the theater. And I took a bunch of pictures, and in one picture, I have
somebody up there,
shrouded black figure, and it was just wow. So I had to put that on the cover of the book.
Yeah.
And so, how could I possibly say I'm a skeptic and a non-believer when all these things hit me over the head, and they're so obvious?
Well, I say that I'm a skeptic a lot, and to a certain level I am. And I think a lot of people who are investigators have a certain, at least, level of skepticism to them. I feel like when I'm around people who don't believe in the paranormal, I'm like the paranormal wacko. And then when I'm in a group full of people who love the paranormal, I'm the skeptic,
Yes. That's so well said. I'm going to use that. That's right. That's exactly the case. Yes.
Yeah.
I like to mess with people quite a bit, and Charles knows this. I think it was a few weeks ago. I text him, "Hey, we should do an event at this place."
Oh my God. Oh my God. That was
Tell him about that one.
I went to Newtown, which is the home of Fairfield Hills Asylum, right? One, if not the scariest place in Connecticut, certainly one of the most scariest. It was one of these institutions and these insane asylums where they did terrible experiments on people, and the atrocities that went down. So it's famous, but people are no longer allowed on the premises of these places, and they've done a lot of remodeling and a lot of renovation to the area. But there happens to be a brewery right on the grounds called New Salem, like asylum, but a new Salem. And I'm in front of this building, and Thomas texts me and says, "Hey, let's do an event at this place. Are you familiar with it?
You're standing for.
You could have picked me off the floor." And I'm thinking, wait, does he have tracking on the phone? And no, it was just either one of the greatest coincidences that ever happened on the planet, or his abilities was just really shining on that day.
Yeah.
He had psychic.
One of those moments. Yeah, it's one of those moments, and Charles has experienced that with me a few times at some of these events, and it's just I know when I get to him because he has this look in his eye, and when he texted me back that he was actually at the place, it's like I could just imagine what he was going through when he realized that I'm texting about the same place he's standing at.
Amazing. And I left there because I had a gig. I DJ and do entertainment events. And I was doing, I can't remember what. Oh, music trivia at a senior center, literally 5 minutes from there. But I had to stop, had to look at the place and say, "Hey, do I want to do another event here? We had fun here. It's a great location. Maybe we should." And then I get the text as I'm standing in front of there. If I didn't believe in Mr. Gormley's powers up until then, and I certainly have had reason to on every occasion, that sealed the deal, baby.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and that's something I can attest to. Having the wonderful experience of being married to a medium, you get to, you have those moments where I'm having a conversation, and then, she'll say something to me, and I'll be like, "Well, maybe," and then she'll be like, and then she'll just look at me sternly and say it again, and I'll go, "Oh, okay." you got information I don't have on this. So.
Or when I tell you something, then it happens right after. Yeah.
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah,
It's
fun times.
Fun
times.
That's the thing, is they make a believer out of you. So
yeah, my kids always had a hard time with it. So but especially now, and I won't reveal, but I have a grandchild on the way. And,
congratulations!
Congratulations!
So my son and his wife came, and it was. I said, "Hey, it's time for you to maybe turn in your lease because I sell cars too." And I said, "Hey, it's getting about time. I just had this feeling. It's like it's about time. What are you thinking?" "I think we're going to get an SUV or whatever." I said, "Okay." So they come in, and all of a sudden I get this overwhelming feeling. I think she's pregnant. So for me to verify this, I said, as I'm showing him the car, I says, "Hey, if you put the car seat, a child's car seat will go in here." And then they had this look on their face like. And I was like, "There it is." And then, well, today, just before the podcast, they had the reveal. And I won't say what it is just in case somebody's watching that doesn't know yet. They're going to tell all the family. But, it's a 50-50 shot. But I just had the overwhelming feeling, what the gender was. And, of course, I was right. And, and my wife was wrong. For the first time, I'll admit, my wife's always right except this time. So
yeah,
you're gonna rub it in.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to carry that one through.
Well, awesome! Congratulations!
Congratulations! Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yep. But,
excellent.
So,
all right, Jenny,
Thomas,
I've been kind of hogging questions, so I'm gonna let you.
yeah, I
go
got a few left. I've been marking off all the stuff I had written down, but
okay.
So Thomas, you said you had some law enforcement experience.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have did you have any paranormal experiences as a law enforcement officer?
Oh, just quite a bit, but I had to keep it quiet. So,
Yeah.
you got to keep peace, and you got to keep, that organization and things in, because I ran a confinement unit at a psychiatric prison. I was a criminal behaviorist, the forensic psychology part of it. I actually profiled a lot of our inmates because I was the Region 3 crisis negotiator for that area. So we would profile a lot of the inmates in the area. So if something like broke out, we had to be prepared for it. So I did a lot of training with that. I think that's what stems my interest, because I did my college thesis on serial killers and all that. So, and I've carried that on in my, I left Florida in 2007, and I carried on now where I profile historic serial killers. But, I worked at a psychiatric prison. I had the Hannibal Lecters of the world. I had those types of things. And the challenge of it day in and day out, when an inmate's got 24/7 to try and get one over on you, the mental challenge of it, learning, being empathic and picking up and knowing. And the inmates still to this day don't know, how the hell did this guy know I had a shank hidden under whatever. So, you get that feeling. It's like I would get a feeling off of an inmate, give me off a feeling. So we're searching this guy's cell tonight. So, and that type of thing. So I think a lot of that intuition, sometimes being in law enforcement, has kept me safe.
Yeah.
When a darkness comes over you, or somebody has the wrong intention against you, it's like you pick up, you get the spidey senses and all that. And I think it kept me safe, and anybody on my shift with me safe. So, and I have to thank the spirit world that works through me and helps me with that stuff, because I'll never say it's me. I think in the spirit world, if you have ego, you're never going to be able to get in touch with it. So if you have that, it's just going to go away. You can't have ego with it. And that way, that it's a higher power working through you and giving you the information to make sure that you help somebody else, whether it be living or dead.
So you have
well, I just want to say real quick, I feel like that's important. And we talk about it a lot on this show, but I feel like it's important that people have that background, like that's acknowledged, because everybody's experiences, matter, and everyone has the right to be believed. But when we're dealing with skeptics and trying to put forth like reliable information that can be brought forth, whether it's paranormal and ghosts, or whether it's UFOs or cryptid sightings, or whatever spans the world of the paranormal, it's important to know that, like, people who are well-respected members of society, the military, law enforcement, whoever, are also seeing these things, and it's just not the guy who had a little bit too much moonshine and saw a woodburger up in Rockfish Gap or whatever. So I always try to highlight that, because
Rockfish Gap, you're always throwing him under the bus there.
You're right. That's the thing. So. Yeah, well, you're right. That's the thing. As a law enforcement officer, you have to be observant.
Yeah,
you have to look at things at every angle. You have to have that healthy skepticism and all that. What you're really dealing with, you're dealing with inmates, trying to get one over on you. You're dealing, and you have to discern what really is going on with the situation. And it's funny how being in law enforcement, how much that helped me in the paranormal too. I'm looking at it with that observation. Is this real? Is this not? Let me investigate. What are the clues? How can I figure this out? What's the history? Do I have to do the background? Like I said, I profiled historic, inmates, what in their background, what's part of this history, what happened here. When you get all that information, and I really plead with people, when you do this type of work, I've done probably over 2,000 home cases over the last 40 years. And one of the main things is, for me, and Charles will tell you, I am ferocious with history, because without the history, without names of people that might have been there, you can't go into a place and say, hey, what's your name? You need to know who might have been there. And you follow that history, you get the story, and you put yourself open to the spirits that could give you the story back. And then you could intermingle and hopefully help them come up with a decision, whether they want to hang out or whether they don't know they're still here and it's time for them to leave. You know, it goes either way. It's like anything else. I tell people all the time, I don't have the power to pass anybody along. Nobody does. You know, even in spirit, I still think they have free will, and they just don't have the shell anymore. And it's the same thing as us in alive. If you were a smoker and I said to you, hey, quit smoking, until you make the decision to quit smoking, it's still your free will. So, you know, whether you listen to me or not, or whether you say, hey, I just want to stay here, or hey, I think I need to quit smoking, and you do it yourself, it's not me that did that for you.
Yeah.
It's something that worked through me and finally gave you the thought that maybe I should do this for myself. So that's what it's all about. We're all on our own personal journey. And same thing with paranormal. And Charles knows, when every time I talk and I do a speech, I always say, anything I'm about to tell you, you don't have to believe. This is just stuff that happened to me. And hopefully what I tell you helps you in your own personal journey, in your experiences, to go forward. That's what it's about. You know, I could talk to 1,000 people. If one person puts them in a different direction that's better for their life, then hey, we did our job and what we talked about, or our event, or our ParaConn, or anything like that. That's what it's for. It's educational. It's fun. We always have a good time. And I mean, it's world-class events, you know, even to the point where Salem, you're going to get to meet people that were in the movie Texas Chainsaw Massacre for the 50th.
So
where are you going to get that? Or where do you get to, you know, hang out with Charles and I and get to possibly communicate with spirits in a historical location in Bristol, you know, or any of our psychic affairs, or our Christmas, you get to sit by the fire and tell Christmas, you know, haunted Christmas stories, and get to be amongst people in a safe place. Because when you want to get together with a bunch of weirdos like us, it's great to be in a safe place to be able to talk about that stuff, like you talked about earlier. Having these events with like-minded people and being in a safe place to be able to talk about it. It's like, I'm at work. I can't talk about it with people I work with. People are longing for that. They'll, you know, they pay the money to come, and that's what they want. That's what the experience is. Forget about everything. It's being amongst, you know, talking to everybody that's there, getting to meet these people, getting to meet the people you've seen on TV or in the movies or anything like that. It's amazing, and I'm glad and I'm very grateful that Charles and I get to provide that for the people and people listening right now. Hopefully you get to come to some of our events.
Well, it sounds great too, because when you were talking about this earlier, you were talking about, you know, going and having a good time and setting a mood for those events. And I feel like lots of times, if you're going to a place and it's you know, oh, you know, there's demon activity and lots of negativity and negativity and negativity, when you're doing your investigation, more than likely, what are you going to get? You're going to get negativity. We know that, you know, energy can work like that. You know, negative energy can feed into negative energy. So that sounds great with what you guys do, because you kind of set a positive kind of fun setting, and then I imagine that allows you to maybe even have more positive experiences.
Absolutely. And I think what's great is when we go to the event, he explains that to the folks. Not everyone is there who's an experienced investigator. We have some first timers, and we have some people, you know, who've always wanted to come on our events. And he says you always emphasize how important intent is, and, you know, and going with the right frame of mind. And I think that's just led to so many positive, you know, experiences and great results. I think that if there's teams out there or individuals who are doing what we're doing, and it's always, you know, oh, we're coming in with the dark clothes, and we're wearing those leather boots, and we got the ears pierced, and we got the tattoos, and we've got the right look, and we are going to scare these spirits out of the woodwork. Hey, if that works, fine. But if you're bringing people along, make sure they have a good time. Make sure they're going with the right mindset, and, you know, if you
make sure they stay safe.
We
got to keep them safe. That's why Charles said we have to have a positive intention. And people always ask, is something going to go home with me? You know something? If you wanted to go home with you, yeah. But if you have the intention to say, hey, stay here, buddy, you know, you have that ability to do that. You have free will. And, you know, and it's said over and over again. And, you know, faith and right intent has more power over any fear that you have.
Yeah, and that's important too. Like, I'm glad you brought that up, because that's something that one of an event that Jenny and I attended. That's one of the things I kind of recommended that for her to do, because there was a lot of people going to a place. There's always the possibility that something could kind of attach to somebody, and stuff like that happens. And you know, a lot of people don't know how to protect themselves. So like doing like, hey, like here, this is how you do a circle, or this is how you kind of put up a bubble or something like that. And it's important and it's good for people, I think, to know that. That way they feel, if nothing else, they feel like they have some kind of effect on and being able to protect themselves.
Well, it is a discernment, and Charles and I do all these events, and I'm always observing everybody at the event. And Charles knows, if something doesn't look right to me, I will take that person aside, and I will, you know, do my discernment and see if there's anything wrong, and I'll clear them of whatever it is. You know, having the shaman background and being able to do that type of stuff, that's why we always want to keep people safe. Is anything 100%? No. But when I see something, I just want to make sure people go home and they know they had a good time, and that if they do fear anything, we're there for them. It's almost like a, you know, I don't want to say emergency medical situation or anything like that, but it is there. I'll put the Band-Aid on you, help you out, you know, if something isn't going right. But, you know, there is that possibility. You never know with the paranormal, but I think we've been great. All our events, everybody's gone home and nobody's had a situation. I haven't had anybody call us, say, hey, my house is haunted now.
Yeah.
You know, because if it was, I'm going to go over and I'm going to get rid of it for you as best I can. So,
yeah. And I'm going to tell them that, you know, I'm not single anymore. And if I was, that would have been the scariest thing that went home with you. So at this point, it's okay. Nothing's going home with people.
No.
What are the... why would it? You know, if it's trapped, it needs to escape. It would have done that all. It just doesn't. I guess it's a common first person's question. You know, is anything going to attach? Is anything going to come home? Yeah,
that's from watching too much TV, usually. So it's, again, people talk demon this, demon that. I'm going to tell you something. After 40 years. I've run into some pretty dark stuff, and it's usually more than what you think it is. There's some stuff I still don't talk about because in my world, I don't give it power, so I don't talk about it. But I have run into things over the years, but the chances of something being demonic, buy a lottery ticket because you're probably going to win. So that's why they make movies about it. So people got to stop fearing that and stop giving it power. In some of these shows and some of these stuff that people do, they want it for likes and clicks and all that. Guess what, buddy? It ain't demonic. I watch your stuff. I've watched all these things, and it kind of hurts my feelings and all that, because, you know, a lot of people call us. There's a bunch of us, the OGs, and over the weekend, you know, there was 2 of us that have been doing this for a long time to oversee the project at the Enfield House, and you know, it just gets to that point. It's like we both talked about it. You know, we're both the same, cut from the same cloth. We're doing it before it was on TV, you know, before it was cool. And you had to hide it and nobody knew about it. And, you know, seeing what's going on now, most of the stuff that's going on now is people watch too much TV. It's not about that. I've always investigated so differently, and people investigate what they think they see on TV, what they think is the right way. And, you know, I'll say again is, you know, a lot of people give us old timers a hard time, but, you know, of course you never got to listen to the elders and all that, you know. I know everything. But I says, nobody's right or wrong about it. I always encourage people, go experience it, make your mistakes. I've made my mistakes over the years. I had to learn the hard way. So go ahead and learn the hard way. You don't have to listen to me. Learn the hard way. And then when the hard way happens, I'll be more than happy to answer the call to help you. So.
Well, going back to how we started the night off, I mean, we learned from The Exorcist that demons make good TV. I mean, they just do. They make
Yeah.
good television. The way I kind of feel about that, I mean, I believe in the demonic to some extent. However you want to define that, I think I have seen at least enough evidence to believe that that is a rare occurrence, but it is out there. But it is interesting, Jenny, because you've run into some really nasty things. But I feel, and feel free to talk about this if you to clarify. But I feel like a lot of times it's been like weird stuff, like elementals and things like that, that kind of give off vibes like that, right?
I mean, I think Thomas kind of mentioned this earlier. He was talking about what people do to themselves.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the weird, creepy, scary stuff is people that have either had a traumatic experience that energy kind of created its own thing, or the person themselves has put themselves in a place where they feel like that's the only way that they can be, and they become something else. Or they were just a nasty person when they were alive. I've seen that too.
Yeah, I think I think that happens a lot. I think a lot of people are like, "Oh, I have a demon." It's like, no, this was a really bad person,
you just
and
have
now
an
after death, they're a
asshole.
really bad person. Yeah,
probably the best way to describe it for your listeners, and I'm going to put it this way: it's trauma, unhealed trauma, things that happen to you, and you create your own thought demon. That's what usually it's manifest. Did any of you guys see The Pope's Exorcist? The movie?
No, I don't know if I've seen that, but that had Anthony Hopkins in it, right? Was that the
No, it was the one with what is it? The Australian actor there.
Oh, I know who you're talking about.
Yeah,
okay.
so it's recent, but
Okay.
no spoiler alerts or anything like that. But let's put it this way: in the movie, they move out to England because the family, there's the mother, the son, and the daughter, and they move out to the husband who passed away, to his old childhood home, and they go out to this home. The fact of the matter is, the young boy, after his dad died, he hadn't talked. So he has the trauma of his father dying, he doesn't talk. Now, the other trauma is the teenage daughter moving away from all of her friends to be in this home, and she doesn't know anybody. And the mother trying to hold the family together in this old home with its history, it creates that perfect storm. And that's why in the movie, the Pope's exorcist had to come in and exorcise the young boy who became possessed and the teenage girl. So if you look at it, that trauma they created and that perfect storm creates that demonic infestation, whatever way you want to look at it, whether it be in the mind, because it's been talked about. If you get enough people think about something, it's called an egregore, and it creates that energy, whether it be negative or positive. But in the end, anything demonic is something that's never been alive before. So it can't be a human spirit or anything like that. Elementals could play into havoc like that too.
Yeah.
Energy of the land and things like that, which I dealt with at the Enfield house over the week. That was probably one of the biggest ones we dealt with. We had to do a land blessing and an offering. But also the familiar demons, which is what we talked about, is the hardest ones. The ones that create the most havoc are your own thoughts, your negative thoughts, people that are alcoholics that overcome alcoholism or anything like that. That's your demon.
Thoughts are things.
Yeah, but the thing is if you could put a name to it, that's why they always say, "What is your name, demon?" and all that. And people think, "Oh, that's like, Hollywood." No, it's true. It's true. If you put a name to something, you have power over it. That's why when somebody goes to Alcoholics Anonymous, they say, "I'm an alcoholic." They put a name to it, and then they have steps to get over it. It's the same thing with demonic type of stuff, or what you perceive it as demonic. You have to come to the conclusion, what's the name of it? Why is it doing this to me? This is the name, and this is what I have to do to get over it. It's psychological most of the time, and that's kind of what I've dealt with over the last 40 years. And I think it's been very helpful that way. It's another way of looking at it. I'm never going to take away, the exorcisms, things like that. But, there's so many different things. We still wrap our head around it. None of us are 100% right or wrong about it, like I said. But it's been very helpful when I can help somebody psychological. It usually tends to move that away. Once you understand it, it's the same thing. I was crisis management. one of the main things in training was you humanize somebody that's taken somebody hostage when you know the hostage taker's name. You humanize them, and you tell them the name of the person they took hostage. Then that changes the whole game. You have control over it, even though they still think they're in control, but they don't realize I have your name now. I have control. So, and that's the whole thing in your battle with, spirit or anything like that. It's the same thing, even with a human spirit that was angry in life. You need to find out why they were angry. What brought them to that point? And once you're able to help them realize that, you take away that even if they want to stay, but they might be a little more willing to live with you without so much noise. So that's an important part too. So.
That was a great movie reference, and it reminded me of another movie to use an example, which was The Babadook. I thought that was a wonderful movie, just in the fact that someone's grief and fear and trauma can really produce these things that they kind of give life to a certain extent. So I think that very similar to the example I think you had there, which is.
But really it's true. Movies are based off of truth and some of the stuff we've done over the years, and a lot of our theories and why things happen the way they do. And again, you're never going to be totally right about it. We're never going to be able to say the paranormal is like looking up at the sky and say, "Hey, that's blue." It's never going to be that way. We're at the point in the paranormal right now. We're still very young in it. There's still a lot to learn. We're at the point like doctors were years ago when they used to think bloodletting would cure people. We laugh about that now. But even 40 years later, there's things that I learned back in the day that we don't even think about now. It's all changed. So there's so much to it. But that's the part of the paranormal is we need to stop watching what we see on TV. We need to think more about what we're doing and be more cautious of what's going on and more observant and try and come up with new ways to look at things. Because if we keep doing it the same way over and over again, we're going to be stuck in a rut, and we're never going to get to the point any closer. I know in our lifetimes we'll never be able to 100% prove it, because if we do, we'll all be out of a job, because the paranormal will become normal and none of us will be talking about this stuff. So it's always going to be that chase. That's the best part about it, is coming up with theories and talking to fellow weirdos like us and trying to figure out why is this and this. And you think, and you have these conversations, and in the meantime, you're having such a great time talking to like-minded people and how they think and all that. I think that's the most exciting part of it. And like I said, Charles and I are able to do these events and provide, again, that safe space to be able to do stuff like that. That's what gives us our passion. I know he'll probably agree with that, but that's what creates that passion in this industry, whether it be paranormal, horror, cryptids, UFOs, whatever it is, that's weird. We love it. It's just the glorious weirdness of it all.
Us too. We had a question from Showman. Do you believe that we can experience the echoes of our past traumas in the form of fears?
I'll answer that. A lot of times with past traumas that are put aside, I hate to bring up, but some people, when they're very young, had situations where a family member might have hurt them, and they put it back in their brain. And then later on in life, as they grow and all that, they start having these traumas and they don't know why. Sometimes we call it the generational curse. It's that holds on generation to generation. People keep learning from one person and they keep repeating it over and over and over again. So, in the point you have to stop that generational curse and come to the point of that trauma. So it is past traumas, even with relatives and your ancestors, create that trauma. That DNA stays there in theory over and over and over again until you stop it. I think a lot of it is you have to come to the point when you're going through that is to forgive the people in your life from the past and all that, and get in touch with that. Because without that, you're just going to keep repeating that type of trauma over and over again. And it's always there. Some people have it. That's why some families always seem to have all the worst luck.
Yeah. Well, there's one thing I wanted to get into, Charles, because I read it in your bio and it just piqued my interest, and I have to get you to talk at least a little bit about it, which is the Dracula tour to Transylvania.
Yes. Please.
we are taking people to see old Vlad Valakia there. Tell us a little bit about that.
21 years I've been bringing travelers to the unholy land. We go to places like Bucharest, Brasov, Sighisoara, all the places that, well, what it does, it combines the fiction and the fun of Dracula. We literally follow in the footstep of Bram Stoker's novel, but we combine that with the actuality and the history of Vlad Tepes, Vlad the Impaler. And it's the best of both worlds because people get a history lesson and they get entertained. And it's one of those, it's funny. We were talking about England and the Beatles and all that. I've been doing Beatle tours to London and Liverpool for many years. And this is like my two passions, my two loves is the monster stuff and rock and roll. And I've been able to parlay them both into sort of side hustles in that both of them are trips that I produce. I founded, I hosted most of the Dracula tours for the first 10, 12 years. And then because we're in the Halloween business, so to speak, and do all this stuff in October, I can't go anymore, but I have someone else host it. But what I did is I envisioned what I would want in these trips. If I was going on a themed vacation, what I would want to do. And I jam-packed that in, not as a travel agent, not as someone who's putting on this senior citizen tour for people who want to visit Romania and get a taste of a Dracula castle. It's the ultimate. It's every minute of engrossing yourself into everything that is vampiric and is Vladish and all these things that we visit Vlad's the place where he was buried, and when they dug it up years later, all they found were animal bones and no skull. It's just amazing stuff. We go to Shore where he was born. We do all the things you've read about, like I mentioned in the novel, going up the Carpathian Mountains and visiting Borgo Pass, and the Romanian castles that are all part of all the legends. So it's the ultimate trip that we've been over 20 years. People go and they have the greatest time. They come back. There's nothing. You can find the best restaurant on the planet, and people come back and go, well, the meal was cold tonight. I'll try to give it a shot next time. They'll give it 4.8 stars instead of 5. People who go on the Dracula tour to a person come back and say, this was the greatest experience, the greatest vacation I've ever had. It was just amazing. People are lifelong friends. There's a couple this year. We do it every late October. For Halloween, of course. A couple's getting married in Pennsylvania. That was their dream to get married. In this scenario, and we're making that happen for them. Awesome. So yeah, dractours.com, dractours.com, and if you want to fly out of New York or you want to fly on your own, we could include the flight, but it's hotels, it's most of the meals, it's every site that's included. You don't pay extra once and if you don't want lunch and you don't want certain meals, you don't want souvenirs, you really don't even have to bring extra money. We include everything, and it's safe and it's fun, and it combines, like all the things that Thomas and I do, it combines the history with the scary stuff, with the lore and the legends, and we make it entertaining. And it's been a great formula for everything.
Yeah, Dracula has always been a fascinating history. I think I really got, obviously, you grow up learning. I think everyone knows who Dracula is. Just dressing up as him for Halloween. But I had an interesting run-in when I was younger, when I was a younger Frosty. We had a friend who was from Romania.
Yeah.
And we were hanging out one night, and we were talking about, and he said something about, that's where whatever. And I was like, so what is that like being from the area where, this infamous figure was from? And he's like, well, for me, I was always taught he was a national hero.
He was a national hero.
Yeah. And it was like, wow. Yeah.
100%. We think Vlad the Impaler, he was a monster. He inspired vampires for how many years in movies and all that. And he was a hero. You wanted to invade Romania. Forget it. You walked the trash off, and you saw these humongous giant sticks of wood 12 feet up in the sky, where you would put your enemy on from the bottom so he doesn't die instantly. He slowly but surely is impaled so that it finally comes through the body, out the mouth, the blood pours out, and you leave him there. You leave him there to rot. You leave him there for flies to infest. And so your locals see that and think, wow, I have the greatest ruler on the planet. And if you go to invade, that's the first thing you see. You're turning around. You ain't invading Romania. You're not even touching.
Just from the smell alone.
Yeah. I mean, George Washington did a lot of things, but no force of British soldiers. So, I mean, he could have upped his game a little bit.
We would have a George Washington vampire story.
No, George just snuck across the river in the morning of Christmas and stuff like that. So
don't you know George Washington had wooden fangs?
Wooden fangs. There we go.
They weren't wooden fangs. Come on, they weren't
we
wooden.
We just came up with a new horror movie.
You just got to be careful of George with an axe and a cherry tree. That's all you got to be careful.
Yeah, there we go. Oh, yeah, you could do something with that too, I'm sure. Mm-hmm.
Oh my god!
Excellent. What else you got, Jenny? That does sound fascinating, though. 100%.
I want to go. Let's go, Frosty.
I know.
Yeah.
Right?
We missed our 20-year wedding anniversary trip last year. We need to make up for it. So your book of top 10 horror lists, what's like the top 3 horror movies in your lists there?
Well, first of all, let's tell what it's about. We got 100 celebrities to give their top 10 lists. Rock stars, it's movie actors, it's DJs, famous DJs, it's athletes. And so it's monsters, celebrities, actors, athletes, and rock stars. The book of top 10 horror lists, 100 celebrities. Nice picture of me on the back in character. And what I'm going to do is give away something that I shouldn't, because we want people to buy the book. But what it is, it's the top 10 list of all the 10 lists. In other words, we looked at all of them and saw which were the ones that were picked the most. And mind you, it wasn't just, it could have been, someone could have done top 10 horror soundtracks, top 10 war killings in movies, top 10 babes in the movie, whatever they wanted. It was an open, but most did movies. So in descending order, the top 10 would be, with 16 votes, The Wolfman. With 18 votes, Rosemary's Baby. Tied with
someone mentioned Rosemary's Baby in chat earlier, talking about that. Really? It might have been Keisha said that's one of the ones that terrified her. Yeah.
Babysitter made her watch it when she was 4 years old.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of people don't know is Rosemary's Baby, the building it was filmed in New York. That was the same spot where John Lennon lost his life in his assassination, where he lived. So there's a lot of history there. Well, let's continue with the top 10.
Yes. Alien, Night of the Living Dead, Jaws, Dracula, the original, Frankenstein, the original, and the top 3. Number 3, with 30 votes, 30 out of 100, The Shining. 32 votes out of 100, Psycho. And you guys tell me what was number 1 with 34 votes. Jenny?
Talked about it earlier.
Frosty?
The Exorcist.
The Exorcist.
Yeah,
that had the most votes from everyone. And what's also neat is, like, if let's say you come up with a film, I can look at the index and tell you which celebrities picked that particular film.
That's cool.
It's interesting. Book. Yeah, that sounds absolutely great. And we have the link if you want to go pick that up and check that out. Definitely go check that out. The Exorcist is interesting because my mother had a story from that movie. Not someone who is into scary movies. I might have seen her maybe watch 2 or 3 scary movies my whole life, but she went to go see The Exorcist when it was released in theaters when she was young. And she said they had to stop the movie. Someone passed out. They had to stop the movie paramedics had to come in, remove the person, and then they started the movie.
Yeah, that happened a lot. So
that's why it's number one.
Just a shameless plug for Charles and all that is we're talking about all these monsters, and he's telling you these top 10 and all that, and all these people watching right now, like you guys yourselves, so love the horror. Every second Thursday in East Haven, Connecticut, at a restaurant called Transylvania Restaurant, Charles does a trivia night. And he also has like an event coming up where they're going to do haunted bingo. So I mean, there's always trying to think outside the box for different stuff.
Yeah.
But remember what I told you earlier about our event at the Trolley Museum and what happened there and how spooky that was. Every October, throughout the whole month of October on the weekends, we do the haunted trolley where we do a murder mystery for Halloween month and all that. So that's always like a fantastic thing too. So
you guys got all kinds of fun stuff.
Yeah.
Makes me wish that we had teleportation devices already so I can just pop up to Connecticut.
You're in Virginia, get in a car. Come on.
Yeah, I know. That sounds like that.
Why don't we have a teleportation device? It is 2024.
Yeah, I know.
You could come up and do some events. You could come up and do the haunted trolley and stay the following weekend, and then come up to Salem and go to the Salem Horror ParaConn Horror Fest and all that, or the shadowsofsalem.com is where you could go visit it. And I really, after Charles and I got to talk, because I don't know where the heck we're having it. I know it's in Salem. We're going to be on the waterfront. We're going to be at the college. I don't know.
Well, we know that September 13th and 14th, we're going to do this Bristol Old Witch's House.
Yes.
That's for sure. If you do a search on Facebook, you will find that one. And then we've got a psychic fair fest at the end of the year. We've got the Demon House for a holiday party. Just somehow Demon House and holiday party don't really sound like they go together. But
let's just call it. We're trying to rename it the 1771 Enfield House, but the Enfield Haunting. I know a lot of people think of what happened over in Great Britain, but no, it's the Enfield, Connecticut Haunting, the Enfield entity, whatever you want to call it. It's, the things that go on there. Demon-wise, no, that's just what the Animal Planet decided to call it when they had them on one of their TV shows with how their dog reacted to the haunting. So, but that's neither here nor there. But when Hollywood gives it a name and they give it that name, they're trying to sell it. So, but the place sells itself if you ever go there. Like I said again, I spent the whole week there, and that place is no joke. And being an empath and feeling energies, I think I profusely sweated most of the week, because usually when I'm feeling it, I sweat a lot, and I sweated a lot. I had to keep drinking water, and and even some of the other people that were psychic there, one of our people kept throwing up. The energy was so hard at first there. So there was a lot going on there, but it is still, the area is still a safe place, especially when you hang out with somebody like us that knows the house really well. And it's a great place to go, and it's a great place to have experience and get to see some crazy history. That house is full of it. There's, history of Indians being there. There's history of the Revolutionary War coming through. There was a massacre of a whole Indian tribe right on the land where the house is. There was a mob hit murder there. There was suicides, murders, you name it. Everything's happened at the house. And he has every piece of history, newspaper articles about it, past history, records, death certificates, to prove it all and to back it up. And when you have that kind of stuff at a house, what do you think's going to happen? That energy is imprinted there, and it reacts. And it reacts to the people that are in the house. So that's how haunting kind of happens. It's the perfect storm. But we're going to be sitting in that house in December, telling our ghost stories and enjoying the Christmas holiday season with some spooky stuff.
Sounds
there
awesome.
We go. Yep. Excellent. And that's how quickly 2 hours go by. We hit it. Make sure everyone listening, ParaConn with 2 N's.org, the shadowsofsalem.com, paranormal Connecticut.com, book of top 10 horror list.com. Go check those out. The links will be listed down below in the description for the show you're watching. Charles and Thomas, thank you guys so much for joining us tonight. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having us.
And for all of you,
I thought it was 4 hours.
Oh, there we go.
I might be sleeping.
Yeah.
For all of you listening later on YouTube and all those wonderful podcast places we're out at, listening at another time and another place, we will see you all next time. But for all you wonderful people who are hanging out with us in chat tonight and YouTube and Twitch land, Not and Getty, Princess Boo Boo, Keisha Mama, Journey of Self-Discovery, Celeste Luna, just all the people, Priestess of Wonderland. Thank you guys so much for hanging out and for all the wonderful questions tonight. It was great to be back and to see all you wonderful people.
Yay, back on Thursday night.
Yeah, back on. We are going to raid out and go. I see that Black Sheep Meat is on.
There's a lot of people on tonight.
Nice.
Do we have any other people up there? I was going to raid Black Sheep, but if someone else has
Scorpio's on.
What's Scorpio doing?
Playing Cult of the Lamb.
Cult of the Lamb.
Those are a lot of cool names. I like those names.
Let's do that.
Do you want to rate her? Because she changed her screen name. Do you know what it is?
Yeah, I got it.
Oh, hey, Maya Bottom. Thanks. Must have been lurking.
All right, everybody. We won't be on. Jenny won't be on tomorrow. We're going to be out of town, but we'll be back with our regular stuff next week. So take care. See you all next time.
Bye.